Here.
They pull something that's benign down from the Google.
Welcome to meeting 101.
And
It's vulnerabilities and exploits this week. We have a few announcements that are pretty exciting. First of all, if you aren't in a committee or if you're new, welcome. Join our GitLab, our Slack. We have elections at the first meeting of November, so please stay around and feel free to vote. We have a few events coming up. Hack Ohio registration closes this week, so if you want to get registered for that and go up to Columbus, I believe it's November 2nd. Do that this week.
We have a team going. Anybody going up?
I'm going up. I know Aaron and Chris are.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, they're all in Slack. So if anybody else is interested in going, get the guys up.
Yeah. Then we have the GE Aviation SOC visit on the 11th. Tonight we're gonna post a sign up for that in the Slack. GE is doing a bunch of awesome stuff for us. So if you want to see a SOC or are slightly interested, go ahead and sign up. We have 20 slots. NSA is coming to visit on the 16th, and then we have a Rockwell automation visit on the 30th. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah. We'll get the next slide up. And all right, so I just want to tell you guys a little bit more about our GE visit and kind of give you some context about why it's kind of an awesome opportunity for them to invite us out to tour through their SOC. So just, I guess, a show of hands, how many of you guys know what a SOC is? All right, so some people don't know what a SOC is, but I'll talk about it. So a SOC is kind of like, first off, it stands for Security Operations Center. And it acts as a nucleus, really, a central point to unify logs and reports from a multitude of different security tools. So, these days we have our firewalls, we have our intrusion detection systems, which are, scanning our networks. We have endpoint detection systems, which are programs that sit on computers and watch what happens in the background. All of these solutions are great on their own, but a real problem that we're coming, and these larger businesses have to deal with today is how do I unify all of this and make sense of it? So what I do at Siemens is I work in our Security Operations Center, working through tickets, which are incidents that we narrow down to things that we think are important, and working on the back end, basically keeping everything up and running. So to give you guys some context about what they're going to be showing us, kind of a day in my life would be, we see an email that was reported by like 40 employees inside the industry. That email has a Word document attached to it. And a password for the Word document in the email, and it looks completely legit, talking about some invoice. My job would be take that email, take that Word doc, blow it up, see what that malware is doing, because a lot of times when you get these phishing documents, it's macros, and they run code when you either open the document or close the document. So that's part of the process is the analysis, but also feeding into how we were able to catch that and how we're able to catch that and see if it happens again, see if somebody else gets this Word document or gets this email. We collect intelligence off of it, right? We get our indicators of compromise. And then we feed those indicators of compromise back in the system to catch more bad guys. It's really high level. I'm not going to go super in depth about it, but imagine if that's kind of a day in the life of what I do. Imagine what they're going to be showing us at GE Aviation Security. We're going to be brought through and they're going to show us with individual team walkthroughs, which I think is really, really awesome, is that we're going to be able to sit down with each of these teams that perform a pretty important aspect of the Security Operations Center, from data protection. That's a lot of compliance standards, making sure that where your data is hosted is safe. That would be very interesting to see how someone like the size of GE Aviation Security is doing it, compared to what my SOC would be doing. Intel, what I just mentioned, really big deal in the security community today. We need to tap into the collective community to figure out who the hackers are, what are some bad things in the wild, what are some bad websites we shouldn't go to, what are some bad hashes. So collecting intelligence is super important because that drives a lot of new detections in the Security Operations Center. And since we're talking about detections, sitting down with the detect team is going to be really, really cool, because the detect team is what actually takes these, this intelligence and applies it, and is actually the ones working the tickets. So it'll be interesting to see, what's their scope, what are they getting hit by, what can they tell us, and what can they show us about that workflow. Extremely valuable. Vulnerability management, meeting with that team will be cool because in any industry, in any enterprise that you work with software, which is about every single one these days, you're going to want to manage your vulnerabilities, see what's a potential target. And then application and data services, I'm going to go along with, this is probably going to be how they manage their internal SOC applications and whatnot. This is a really, really big deal for them to bring us through that. And then afterwards, apparently, we're going to be going through their actual security operations center. So like this should have gotten moved down some. You can't even read that there, but we're going to take an in-depth tour. So they're going to have us meet with all these teams. We're going to get a context about what they do, how they do it, and then they're going to take us through the security operations center so we can actually visualize how this is doing. And how many of you guys went to the U.S. Bank SOC visit? Just one? Was that cool?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was pretty eye-opening because it's so just the way they operate is so different than anything that I've ever been exposed to. Is really cool to see how they internally work. Yeah, it was really
and socks they look cool, right? Pictures on the next slide. But beyond that, one more thing. I didn't talk about this one, but they're taking us through their learning center tour, and we're going to basically get an overview of their jet engine technologies and some of what they're doing. So we have 20 spots open for this. They're taking basically the entire day from us for 9 a.m. to 3:30. So this is a really big opportunity. It's a great networking event. I know that I got my job by networking with people in the community. That's how it starts. You have to basically know somebody in the security community, be passionate about security to basically get a job in the security community and be knowledgeable. So the connections that you can make at this visit, might just end you up working in a security operations center at GE Aviation if you make the right connections, which is awesome. So I don't know. I think this is posted in Slack right now.
If it is not, I'm going to post it as soon as I sit down.
Yeah, but if you're interested, I think it's in our general channel too. Scroll up a little bit, click on that, and check it out, and hit the next slide. Yeah, so I don't know how well you can see this. This is kind of like a setup for a security operations center. Depending on which, they might have something completely different looking from this, but the general idea is that, we have screens, we can share up data that the analysts want to look at. Maybe we have a spike of phishing emails coming in, and this is something that, all the analysts need to be focusing on, like what are we getting hit with right now? So that's kind of the purpose of these larger screens. When we come through, it's probably going to be a lot of attacker maps and stuff that looks cool, but they actually use them, and then having your different levels of analysts. In the US Bank SOC we toured has similar stuff to this. So very cool. I'm excited. So if you're interested, sign up. Let's show them that we're very thankful for what they want to show us. So that's all I got.
What's October 11th?
October 11th is when we're going.
Is that a Wednesday?
That's a Friday.
A Friday?
Yeah, it's a Friday from 9 a.m. to 3:30. So.
Oh, that's reading day.
I think. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have the time, make that. So. Cool.
All right. Wiggly news.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron. If you don't know, I'm head of lab. See some new faces out there, but I'm gonna go over some weekly news. Komodo, they're a security company. I think they have Komodo AV, what it is. They had another security breach this year. So there was a remote code execution in B Bulletin, which someone just so happened to stumble upon, and it got patched, but Komodo ironically didn't patch it for 4 days. And in that 4 days, someone dumped their entire user database. And there were usernames, passwords, salts, emails, and actually I thought this was interesting, the most recent IP. That was kind of scary because geolocating.
And this is why you do vuln management.
Yep. So there really wasn't much more about that, but people were just kind of memeing on them because they're a security company and they had another breach. I thought that was funny. This was a really interesting article. I suggest reading the entire thing, but there is a new way to deliver malware through open document formats. So antiviruses, when they scan these files, whether they're coming in off the network or if they're just sitting on your drive, Open document, it's like an archive, so like docs and tars and zips, so it's got stuff inside of it. Apparently AVs treat these differently and they don't scan them as thoroughly. A majority of these attacks were targeted against Microsoft Office, but also OpenOffice and LibreOffice were hit, or not really hit, but used. It used object linking and embedding. So if you don't know what this is, if you've ever had, let's say like a Word document that you've put an Excel table in, that's embedded linking or object linking. It basically either injects the file inside or it creates a link to that file somewhere else on the system. So it used that to drop an exe called Spotify.exe, which clearly wasn't actually Spotify. It was a .NET binary that once it was run, it unpacked another binary, which was full of more packers, which then unpacked another piece of malware, which was AZO Rolt, which is a data exfiltration piece of malware. That was a really interesting read. It kind of goes into depth on like how it actually works, so I highly recommend you read that one. And then more ransomware. So a couple hospitals down in, I think, Atlanta, and then a couple in Australia were hit with more ransomware. They haven't disclosed how much they actually want for it, but I thought it was interesting. They had to turn away patients and actually cancel upcoming surgeries because they didn't have access to any of their computers. It just, again, adds more to the ransomware scare, but I thought it was really interesting that there's a new law being proposed as the Department of Homeland Security Cyber Hunt and Incident Response Teams Act, which basically just, I think, allows the DHS to assemble teams, like a response team, to actually respond to ransomware events or prevent ransomware events. So I'm curious to see where that goes. That's all I really have as far as news goes. Does anyone have any questions?
Is that a DHS cyber hunt thing and also similar to the Ohio Senate bill, the cyber militia thing?
I'm not sure. I didn't look into it. When I read what the description was of that, it sounded very, very similar to the Ohio Cyber Militia Act, but I didn't read too much into that. I just thought that was a new thing that got proposed. But anything else? Cool. I think Chris is gonna go into vulnerabilities and exploits. Cool.
All right, so we're going to go through all this stuff tonight. If you weren't here last week, shame on you, as always. Last week, actually the week before, we went over the Docker basics. Last week we technically had Battelle in. We did.
Technically.
Yeah. So today I'm going to go over the basics of Metasploit and Armitage and like really how those work under the hood at a very high level. There's not going to be a whole lot of hands-on demo today though. Next week, be ready with a Kali install though, because I'll just bring a machine and we'll just go to town on it. Yeah, so you can do this on Windows, but you'll be set. So forewarning, Armitage and Metasploit are like off-the-shelf exploit tools. So they are meant for you to put it on your computer, point at another computer, and just say, I want to hack that. They are not really like meant for home use. They're meant for they're meant for actual penetration testers to go out to businesses and evaluate if they can get into systems. So they are actually meant to do dangerous things, although usually they're in the hands of trusted people. They are open source, so you can just download them entirely and just run them even if you're not a good person. So if you're not being a good person, don't associate that with our club. Yeah. So vulnerabilities, they're parts of a system that can potentially cause damage. That's a very vague term, but in software that could be anything from displaying like direct user input. So say you have like a website where people can put their emails on their user profiles. If, for example, you show that on someone else's browser and what they've actually put instead of their email is like another piece of JavaScript and it runs on a client's browser, that's cross-site scripting, and that is a form of vulnerability and exploit that used to be more prevalent, but it's it's still prevalent. It's not as big as it was, but it's still a OWASP top 10. So things like that are huge issues that people can make in their systems without really being aware of it. So typically, any form of data given to you from a user should be handled very carefully. There's all kinds of libraries for serialization, not serialization, sanitization. Yeah, so if you don't sanitize user data before you use it, you will shoot yourself in the foot immediately, or someone will very much help you.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to like make a point about this too. Like, you know, Metasploit and Armitage make it so dumb easy to exploit things. That's why you should always, you know, keep your stuff patched, update, manage your vulnerabilities, because it's really not that hard for somebody to open up a canned exploit, just use it against you.
Yeah, so that's probably what happened to Komodo too. Is probably someone found the proof of concept for that CVE, that or whatever that vulnerability was, and just threw that at them, and they didn't update fast enough to not have that happen.
4 days wasn't fast enough.
4 days was not fast enough. So
They said it was a stupid easy exploit to run, like zero technical skill.
yeah,
Wait, let's figure it out and do it in here sometime.
yeah, yeah. So even if it's not user input, incorrectly handling even like data inside of your program can often lead to unwanted things. It's what use after free is the term for it.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have a user input, these all boil down to user inputs at some level. Someone could put in like a piece of code, and if you use that after you've freed the memory, it could be interpreted as actual machine instructions and just run on your machine. It's a variation of that, but really all kinds of user input, that's what happens. Yeah. So not watching for potential attacks is also a huge one right now. So SOCs are very important because they actually watch your corporate networks and keep you from being destroyed without knowing it. If you're running, say, a small business of 10 to 20 people, you probably don't have a SOC unless your business is like a SOC for sale. And then, someone could be wrecking your entire network and you never know. So that's a huge issue. And then not training employees about spam is also a big one intermittently. So bigger corporations are usually better about those last two, but people fall for phishing scams all the time. There's actually plenty of online training for phishing scams. Google has one now. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen.
So Google actually has a phishing test that you can go through. I think it's like 10 emails, and then if you click the wrong one, it'll tell you you've done bad, and then Google will come and hurt you. Maybe not. So all these vulnerabilities can lead to potential exploitation of systems. Exploitation being bad things. And so the way these are basically documented for the public are typically through CVEs, or just malware, or not malware, or vulnerability write-ups. So vulnerability researchers usually publish CVEs, which are basically documents that say what software is affected and vaguely, typically, how it was affected. It's very rare that you find one that has a proof of concept in the original CVE, because that would be giving everyone in the world the actual exploit code the day of release. Typically, when a vulnerability researcher decides to release a CVE, they will actually contact the company who makes the product and give them 90 days to fix it. That's an industry standard behavior. That doesn't always happen. Google has been getting some flack recently for doing it 40 days. Yeah. Yeah, so typically, you don't get a whole lot of information for these, except for that there's a whole lot of them. They have dates, so you can kind of guess how fresh they are, and then there's just an ID after that. I just punched in Windows 10 into the CVE database. Actually, let me explain what that is. So, the nonprofit MITRE, which apparently runs everything in the security industry secretly, has a website called cve.mitre.org, and this is the main CVE list. So you just go to search, you type in Apache, we'll do something different this time, and it gives you just lists and lists and lists of vulnerabilities basically that people have found. They might not be raw code execution and immediate pwning, but they could disclose information about what's happening on your system that could allow attackers to do more interesting things later. So there's just easily hundreds of thousands of CVEs per year. Usually they're released in batches by actual companies researching them. Yeah, so because this information is public, not only do defenders have it, but attackers have it, and they both have it at the same time, which is why security updates and monitoring become very, very important, like down to the minute. So exploits, exploits are what use the vulnerabilities to cause unexpected behaviors. Typically, your exploit is some kind of user input or abuse on a system that causes a functionality to do what it's not supposed to do. For example, the getS function in C, for which the actual documentation says never use this function. Space. Yeah. So this is a extremely vulnerable function, famously vulnerable in C. And the first thing on the description is never use this function, because this just takes raw user input from the command line and shoves it into a buffer. But one of the huge issues with it is it doesn't actually check if the buffer it's copying into is the correct size for the data it's copying. So it allows an attacker to actually reach into your machine and put over different machine instructions, different values for variables. Yeah. There are nicer versions of this function, and actually if you try to compile a modern binary or from a modern compiler using this function, you will usually get a huge warning that says, do you really want to do that? And then if you turn off warnings, typically this one actually escapes that. So you have to explicitly say, yes, I want the gets. I'm making a CTF problem. So it's pretty much the only place you'll see that anymore, unless you find a really, really old binary. So exploits can cause code execution. So with gets, you can actually shove machine code back into your actual machines, your stack. You could do ROP, which is just you overwrite your return address on your function, and you go somewhere else that you really shouldn't be. You can do information disclosure, so you can actually, if you have a printf string that just prints user input and doesn't actually, what's the word? Actually printf format the print string, you just printf and then user input inside of that. A malicious user could actually start dumping information from the memory of your program. That's another fun one. And you can also escalate privileges, so that happens a lot. There's actually a couple CVEs I saw for Blackboard recently that you could put in user input on, I think it was the PDF viewer, and you could put full HTML documents that had the PDF file extension but weren't, and then it would just run the code on the remote machine, whoever viewed it. I think UC patched that one. Not that I checked. Yeah. And another thing is exploits can actually be reverse engineered from security updates. So when you release a security update, you are releasing the code that directly addresses the vulnerability. So it narrows down for attackers where that is. And if you get, someone who's only watching your product, say your Microsoft Windows, and they go through every single one of your security updates and diff your files and read the code, they will find what happened and they will try to exploit systems that haven't updated yet. Which is again why it's important to update quickly if you're a huge corporation, or really if you're running anything publicly. So off-the-shelf exploits. Exploit database is actually not available through the UC network because they don't want us to have it. It has these wonderful filters called verified and has app. So basically what this is where cve.mitre.org is a list of vulnerabilities. This is just a list of exploits. And I wish I took a screenshot of one of these. When you click it, it gives you a Metasploit module, which we'll get into in a minute, which is a piece of code that you just say, point this exploit at this box, and then use this payload, and then just go. So it's almost trivial at this point. And if you do verified and has app, and you're typically guaranteed to have a working exploit with whatever program it works on. So if you're, say, a professional penetration tester, and you just want to generate a bunch of machines, I think this is actually not how vulnerable works. It's not one. There's a tool that'll create a randomly vulnerable virtual machine. I'm pretty sure the way it works is it just pulls through this site and just onto a VM. They're also sorted by type and platform. There's other stuff on here for Windows, Linux that got cut off though. So what Metasploit and Armitage are these fun tools that basically tie together everything that they can find in Kali, and then you have thousands of exploits. Let me just launch this. So unfortunately the actual setup for Metasploit is rather complicated, so I went ahead and did it earlier.
See that?
Oh, it's not that one. I'll use Kali. No, I don't want that one. Sorry. So I have the Metasploit Docker image already pulled. I pulled a fresh one today. I think they update it like every 3 hours or something crazy. What did I do wrong? It's IT. So what this will do is pull a fresh Docker image that has the entire Metasploit framework on it. I don't believe the database works fully. So the way Metasploit is kind of laid out is you have a Postgre database in the background, and then usually it houses some kind of catalog for your now 2,000 exploits almost. So yeah, there's a whole lot in there. There's all kinds of different payloads. So the most popular payload for Metasploit is I think it's typically a reverse shell called, what's it called? Meterpreter, yeah. So it's a piece of shell code that you can shove into another program, or if you can get it down to, like, from user input on a web app to run, you can like give a minimal version. It can upgrade to being able to load more modules over the network. So it's pretty crazy. This is not user friendly at all. Like if we type the help on here, we get like 7 pages. This is a bit advanced. Yeah, Frank, do you have any suggestions for typing things in Metasploit?
I never use the command line.
You never use the command line? Okay, so we'll get to Armitage in a second. One more fun thing while we're here is you can go through all the banners in Metasploit pretty easy. Session 1 died of dysentery is a good one. I have like probably 100 in there. They all have random probabilities of showing up.
You could show how like you can type in use and then
Yeah.
like go to like an exploit.
So let me like list what exploits.
I think so.
This might crash because
be a
I did
lot.
not configure this machine.
Show.
Show exploits, yeah. So you can just have it dump all the exploits you have on your install to the screen. It usually hangs if you don't give it any search parameters, because as we saw there at 2,000, and it'll be very unhappy.
Hey, and if I can add one thing too,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you're gonna talk about this. You see the encoders up there too. Those are basically used to try to obfuscate the shell code or whatnot that you could be trying to sneak across some antivirus or whatnot. So it's not just all about exploitation, just pure brute force exploitation. It also has stuff built in for like evasion and
So there's all that.
making it a bitch to decipher.
There's also a post module for gathering information or escalating privilege after you've exploited a machine. And that one is usually there are external modules for that. PowerShell frameworks are pretty common for escalating privilege and pivoting off of the computer you've exploited.
So another thing on exploits is because they are so like ridiculously off the shelf. Typically, you have like the date they're released, but you also have a like quality of the exploit as judged by the community. So, for example, this Postgre payload, which I'm pretty sure this exact one, just because I happened to see this recently, takes a Postgre connection, just shoves a function that's actually binary into the thing and runs it. That's considered excellent. So you can, if you can filter by, quality, which we'll see how to do in Armitage in a second. It's just trivially easy to find like how to hack into something that's vulnerable. So if you've got a machine that's out of date by like 2 years and there's a bunch of public services on it, you probably can exploit that. Sadly.
There's a good chance someone's automatically done it already.
Yeah, so there's also meta tools for Metasploit. One of the more interesting ones being Autosploit, which is just a container, so like in Docker, that scans an entire network automatically and then goes through and like tries to exploit everything it can find. I think actually the original one went through the whole internet.
The original Autosploit, when it was released, yeah, it was just scanning the internet. It would automatically just compromise anything it possibly could on the internet, and then just be like, this is what we got.
Right. So this is the end of our slides, so I'll just kind of do a quick demo. So this week's kind of quick because this demo is actually really hard to set up. But please come next week with the most recent version of Kali downloaded to your laptops. Just the ISO, should be fine. So this is a machine called Metasploitable, which I will start. This machine is like purely meant to be trained on for Metasploit. And then I actually have a Kali live boot image here, which actually now that I think about it, I've shut this off, so it might not work. So Kali, when you actually have the disk image, you don't need to install it. You can just use a live boot. It gets kind of unhappy about certain things, but it should be fine. Hopefully, I'm not wrong, and I can actually do this. Probably should check it.
rule
So-
of presentations.
Yeah, of course, I didn't check this one part of it. So there's an interface for Metasploit called Armitage, which is entirely written in Java. Because Metasploit maintains this gigantic database every time you do any action, you can actually very easily reach into that database with a user interface and say, like, list all your machines you're trying to attack, or what exploits will run against them, or what services you found against them. You can do this all with just like a few clicks in Armitage. Oh. Okay, of course I don't have it. Oh no. Ah, rip. Okay. So I'll just have to do some screenshots and I'll just do this interactively next week.
I think it comes with the or in the application menu.
The app menu?
Yeah.
I don't have it on the package manager. I don't think it's default package in
I
the
think Armitage is default,
Where?
unless they took it out.
I think they took it out because it's really
It's
hard
out.
to use.
It's out.
You can re-download it as a meta package, which takes like 30 minutes, which is why we won't be doing it now. But
Is that the most recent release of Kali?
yeah,
that they
this
did?
is like the freshest one off the download. So if you're interested in what tools are on Kali, and we'll actually kind of explore Metasploit this way, you can go to kali.org. It's actually tools.kali.org subdomain. Gives you a whole list of meta packages that you can download on your Kali machine. So say, for example, you don't have Armitage. These names on here actually are the packages that you can download from the Kali app repo. So Armitage is of course on here, and it sets up this massive system for you. It of course depends on Metasploit because it is the front end for it. Do some screenshots. So here's some screenshots. Of course I didn't save any. When you open it up the first time, there's nothing in it. Oh my god, there's nothing else. Okay. We'll just look up a demo for it.
Raphael Mudge. Can I talk about Raphael Mudge real
Yeah.
quick? Raphael Mudge is the maker of good old Armitage here, and he's also the maker of this awesome program called Cobalt Strike. And Cobalt Strike is basically a tool that you can purchase for a lot of money, and you can also get a free version. If you email him personally, you have to email him and ask if you can have a demo version of this tool. But it basically gives you a lot of really sophisticated ways of hacking into systems, maintaining persistence on those systems, pivoting through a network. It's like a very well put together advanced persistent threat tool that is sold, right? It's like $5,000 a year or something.
I think we're
Just-
commercial license.
Yeah, because he's done such a good job at making it so easy to use
So
to hack people.
Cobalt Strike, as opposed to Armitage, where Armitage focuses on a set of systems and tries to exploit them. Cobalt Strike, you just point at your entire network and you say simulate an actual attack happening. It's meant to train your responders, but it's pretty effective.
And one other thing about Raphael Mudge is he's the owner of Spectre Ops, which is a cybersecurity company that does red teaming. So they will emulate like an advanced Chinese hacker, and then attack a government network or something. You know, that they're contracted a lot to attack and audit networks and act like real advanced persistent threats, which is pretty cool.
All right, so if we just kind of watch this demo, this is of course from the guy who made it, so it'll probably be a little bit more advanced than some of us. You can see he's actually using an exploit. So you have a full console embedded in the UI for Armitage, but you can also just, that was too fast for some people to see. You can go to hosts and just do all these kinds of scans just in the UI. So does anyone not know what Nmap is? Awesome, only one person. So Nmap is a wonderful network scanner that you can point at everything. And it usually tells you a lot of information about the services. But if you can banner grab through Nmap and feed it right into Metasploit, which Metasploit by default has an integration for, you can do it through Armitage as well. But Armitage will also very easily allow you to search through every single exploit that the service values match, like the type of service and what version it's running. So as he gets in here, I imagine he'll just scan a range and then do find exploits. Yeah. So he scanned a range and 2 machines came back. That's what they are. They just appeared right there. Oh, 3 came back. He's got a list of jobs already running. So jobs in Metasploit are basically exploits that you've run and then just waiting for them to come back as payloads. So he found a Windows 95 box and a Windows XP box. These are probably VMs he's running on his 172 network. Alright, so he's got an interpreter session running too. So once you've hacked a machine or exploited a machine through Armitage, you literally just right-click the machine to connect to it, and then you can pivot through to other machines, because once you have a full install of Interpreter, you can use that as a forward client for your entire Metasploit, like attack system, basically. So he's going to forward all this traffic through this machine he's already exploited. So theoretically, if you were inside a corporate network, you could pivot around pretty easily like that, especially if you were a tester. Yeah. So what he just did there was you can find attacks automatically through your UI, and basically what that does is it looks at all the systems you've already looked at, and without adding any more scans to the network, it will look at all the information you've gathered, go through all 2,000-ish exploits, and find the ones that you can run on these systems. Usually it's not that fast. So yeah, that's it. Once you get to that point, you just right-click, attack, and then start clicking things. So that's how trivially easy this can be. I actually do this for Franco's cyber defense overview class, just to show like how ridiculously easy this is. So if you're a defender, this should be scary, but it should also be cool because it's like, ooh, hacking, but it's just clicking. Yeah. So this UI is like every individual option on the command line for a module. So it's a lot easier than typing set and then like every single variable. So he's launched that attack and it just like got it, and then it shows you in the UI, it turns red and has lightning bolts. All right, that's all I have for tonight. Next week, please download the latest Kali ISO, which is 19.3 from Kali.org, and we will live boot from virtual machines, go through Scratch setting this up, and I'll actually bring in a physical machine we can attack. All right.
Does anyone have any questions?
Awesome.
Cool. Remember the GE visit.
What?
Check it out.
GD bits?
GE visit.
Yeah. The GE SOC visit.